So, as simple as that, we are officially live streaming from LinkedIn. And let's get right into it. Let's get right into it. So, we have the three of us here, obviously. Francisco, you are our star guest today. I'd love to learn a little bit about you, namely what you're working on now and why you're interested in what you're doing now. I'd love to start there if we can.
Okay, thank you for the invitation. Honored to be here. I find what you're doing quite interesting. My name is Francisco. I'm from Buenos Aires, Argentina. I study psychology, and for the last more than 2 years now, I'm specializing in helping professionals to change the course of their careers in a much positive way and to really have the courage to follow their dreams professionally. And I think, and I'm convinced that that is possible. And I've been working on a methodology considering personal branding, strategies, planification, understanding the market. Well, a lot of topics that help me to offer a wide variety of things and new information for all my coaches that generally gives results. Of course, it depends on every client, but I'm convinced that there are ways to really get better results, and maybe the secret is to like to go for what you really want, not just
Mhm.
what is possible.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
So Julian and I both live in the States. I work very closely with Julian. One of the things I've seen here in the States is this explosion of coaching, whether it's career coaching or personal health coaches. But the number of people who are in coaching now seems to be almost, I wouldn't say the word ubiquitous, but it's almost a cliche now to say people are in coaching. There's so many coaches. It's difficult to size up what one coach does versus another coach. Even the word coaching may or may not be the best word. How do you carve the boundaries of what you're doing versus, say, somebody who's a personal health coach or career coach? Where do you draw the lines? What do you not do, and what do you focus on?
Okay, good question. And there is always like a conflict between professionals like psychologists and psychiatrists. There was a conflict there, like I don't know how many years ago, maybe 30, when psychology was not legal, in fact, here in Argentina, for example. Um, and I think something interesting is happening with coaching, because um, clearly there is a limit where you can like intervene with a client, and that line I think that is quite gray, because well, there is an analogy that Tony Robbins, a famous coach, uses, and I like it, and how that helps to make a difference between counselors, like health counselors, and coaches. And is that the counselors, the therapists, um, they make sure first that you don't have any injury um, that can like be an impediment to climb a mountain. So
Mm-hmm.
to be in the ground and to check that you have everything, like physically you are good to go,
Yeah.
you have the strength and good nutrition and whatever.
Yeah.
And when you start climbing the mountain, and to know how to climb it, how to go up, where to stay, and everything will be with a coach. Like, I believe that there are some emotional blockers and like wounds, like emotional wounds we have from
Mm-hmm.
childhood, maybe, that at some point in our lives is going to be an obstacle, is going to make things really difficult to make it happen, to have a partner, to get a nice job, or to keep a
Mhm.
job. So I think the line is, when we are talking about mental health in a deep way. I think that's where the coach cannot intervene, cannot, maybe it lacks of the tools to help that person. But in the other hand, when you are coaching someone, all these emotional things are going to come up, um, and that's maybe going to be the biggest challenge to enable that person to do all that you are proposing as a coach, because I
Yeah.
have a lot of information and strategies and how to do your resume and etc.
Hmm.
But when we agreed from one week to another to like move forward with some topics, and they came in the next session and they say I couldn't do it, and make a lot of excuses, like
Yeah.
I was very busy and I don't know, and etc. etc. I know that that's not the real thing. There's
Hmm.
something
Hmm.
there that is sabotaging their actions, and to do um, this jump to something new, so to overcoming
Hmm.
fears, and to
Yeah.
to to be a better person in every way. So I don't know if that's clear what I'm saying, or is it more confusing than before.
I think it's a little clear. I'm more curious. I know you said something earlier where you were talking about you've developed a certain methodology. I don't know if you can give us the exact details, but I'm curious on where you developed your methodology and where is it taking you? What do you see working? What have you tried that hasn't worked? I'm a big method and strategy person, so I'm definitely taking notes. But yeah, what have you found that works? What have you found um, that doesn't?
Okay, there is something, that, I mean, every business person can be familiar with, and that in a negotiation, it's necessary to use like all the forces, like, in favor,
Hmm.
you know
Hmm. Sure.
and to try to change someone is not a good strategy, for example. And I need to work with the interest of the person I have in front of me, that in this case would be like the interviewer, for example.
Right.
So another force, besides the market interest, would be, is what I have to put in the table, like something that is different. Like,
Hmm.
what do I have to offer that is original, that is different, and that talks about me?
Right.
What do I have to offer that makes me shine, makes me
Hmm.
feel passion, like, interested.
Yeah.
There is something in ourselves, I think, that make us shine and have
Hmm.
like a higher vibration in terms of energy,
Yeah.
and that's a force that we have to persuade other people. If
Yeah.
we are, when you're interviewing people, there is some candidates that are really, like, very low energy, and it seems like they don't even want to be in the
Mm.
interview,
Right.
and that's very important, and it's really powerful. So
Mm.
that's
Yeah.
one additional force, like the most difficult maybe to describe. What
Yeah.
you
I call it I think for me, I call it a superpower. What are you really good at, and how can that add value? I mean, I talk to Mike all the time, and we talk about how many of our clients just want one little thing, or maybe it's not the technology that they care about the most. Maybe it's how they will be as a team member. So I totally agree. I think there's such a little nuance to the job placement where it's like maybe we just need somebody who's heads down and is really focused and crank all day, or somebody who needs to communicate what they're doing because it's an early project. And there's so many little things that clients are looking for, and we learn every day, where you can control that by just being yourself as a candidate. Whether you're more of a vocal candidate or whether you're somebody whose work style is different. I truly believe there is a position out there for everyone. So how do you go about sorry for hijacking this, Mike, but how do you go about just like learning the different styles? Do you do a test? Do you test people on like what your strengths are, what your interests are? Or is it more of a discovery kind of, call thing? Is it like a test exam that you give people, or is it more of a phone call and a few meetings you kind of get a sense of what somebody's interests are and how they are?
Well, Julian, that's something that I struggle with in meaning that I don't feel comfortable using these tools because it's going to like put a label in someone, and it's going to condition my how I hear what these people had to say. And I think it's more valuable to be like a discovery, a conversation, to be really to pay attention to the words, to the language that they are using to refer stuff, because the language says a lot, and that's maybe from my psychology studies. But I think these tools, we have to be really careful because, in fact, people believe the results, and if a tool is telling me that I'm introverted, why I couldn't I be extroverted if I work on that? I mean, I don't. I struggle with these tools, and I'm like I like to understand how they work and how they are done. And most of them are like a black box. Like you put some information and they spit out a result. So I wouldn't take the chance to use that with a client. I really prefer to take my time to discover and to pay attention through the language.
Do you Francisco, are you in alignment with the idea that people fit into different quadrants as a personality? This is kind of a popular psychological assessment or a way of making sense of the human beings, is to say, oh, you're INTJ, you're Myers-Briggs, or you're like this, and you put people in boxes. And surely we have to start from observing the different characteristics of behavior. Some people love to talk to other people. Some people hate doing it. So there are differences. Do you say, okay, these differences exist and we can put them in boxes, but the danger in doing that is that when you're in a box, then that's self-reinforcing. Then it's like, I can't get out. That's just the way I am, and I'm not mutable. Is that the trapping of it?
Yes, and that box is a box that we grew up with. Someone who told us how the world works, like our parents or whoever, and then all our environment, like in school, and all the conditions that we've been through shaped us in a way, and they, in a way, it made us believe that we should be this way, or we are good at this thing. So I'm a big believer that if you want to get out of that box, you really can. But if you don't want, and you are really happy in that box, okay, this keep doing what you're doing, and to like be an expert in that box, and that's great. We are all different, and we make our choices of what kind of jobs and what kind of activities we want to do, and what do we want to develop. But there is something there.
Sure.
But I mean, we have to be really careful, because maybe our dream job needs us to be in two boxes or three at the same time. And so it's my job to encourage people to explore and to, I don't know how it says, take the leap, like to
Yeah.
the jump to a new possibilities, a new world.
¿Cómo se dice en español? How do you say it in Spanish?
¿Hacerle ganas?
Dar el salto, animarse. Sí.
How do you get someone that is feeling low energy in an interview? What would you say to them ahead of time that maybe would change how they're sitting, how they're feeling, how their energy is? Is there an exercise you can go through with someone, or some way of changing that? Because the first step is being aware of your energy. So most people just would, they'd sit there and they'd say,
I'm just like that. I'm like this. I have low energy.
That's just the way I am. It's like, okay, you want to say, wake up, like, let's go. This is the job interview. You're going to work at my company and you're going to be a contributing member, and I'm going to invest, tens or hundreds of thousands into you. And you want that person to say, all right, this is it. This is my life path. And I'm going to give everything I have. What do you, it can't just be pep up, get more energy. What do you do?
Yeah, that's a good one. And and it's a process for a lot of people. You can have this character in the interview and to just force it a little bit, like to, or maybe do some energetic stuff before, like to have some hacks to prepare specifically for that interview. I believe you cannot, and that's okay. But for the long term, and to have like higher energy in general in our lives, I think it's a very personal process in which I encourage people to start connecting with what does really energizes them, and that starts with self-knowledge and exploring what are the things that make you happy, or maybe you have this feeling that the time is going really fast, like, and because there is people that are quite disconnected from like enjoyable activities, and maybe doing what they do, like their job, maybe they like, in, I don't know, programming in this case, but maybe they like to write code, but they are in the wrong project with the wrong people, the wrong company, the wrong values, like everything is not aligned. What would help them to feel like they belong and they believe in what they're doing, and to let the creativity start working, like showing up. I feel this is talking about like more like psychology, but I think that when we get to that point of low energy, it's like we are numbing all our emotions, and that comes from like it's like a mechanism, like a coping mechanism,
like learned behavior,
because there is something that we are not able to deal with, so we start to numb every emotion. And with this includes creativity and a lot of stuff that we really need to do a really amazing job. So yeah, I think that career coaching needs a combination with psychology, like deeper stuff, because it helps us to go a little bit farther, I think. But labels again, it's like, or career coaching or psychology, or
right.
So yeah, I don't know if that was clear. Energy is a very interesting thing, and I think like having like this sparkle in people. For example, I feel I have it when I'm talking about stuff I'm passionate about, but maybe someone shines when they are doing other stuff. you know. So an interview, I think one of it, that's because we need to use this force in favor. Like what does help you to shine, and
Yeah.
try to bring that to the interview.
Yeah. It's almost like a story, right? So if I tell you a story, there's going to be some emotional reaction you have. You know, a woman's walking down the street with her two kids, she's eating ice cream, she turns the corner, you know, she goes in the crosswalk, and all of a sudden a car comes and clips her and you know, breaks her arm, she falls down. Like there's an emotional ride you're on when even I say that short story, and the emotions there are negative. It's like, oh, you know, but what a tragedy that is. And then you could say, you know, and she goes to the hospital, and her son sees what the hospital's like, and is so inspired that he becomes a doctor and he cures cancer. And it's like, whoa, that's amazing. That's amazing that happened. And it's like this. There's a story about what is currently happening in the moment that we're living. You know, we're on this podcast now. I'm talking to you about psychology and hiring and all things related. That story somehow plays a part in my life. And if I feel that this story that I'm in right now is the story I want to be in, it feels good. You know, I'm moving towards something I hold in high esteem. You know, a life. I'm moving towards a life that I want to be in, and I can see that pathway. Then I feel good. I feel energized. And I think it's a signal. It's like if I'm on this podcast and I'm thinking, God, I want to be a chef. I want to be a cook. Why am I here? Why am I on this podcast? I'm going to be dragging. I'm going to be disengaged. And I think that there's some story we tell ourselves, and the moment that we're living right now relates to that story. And if it's like you say, alignment, I think of alignment as, does the story that I want to be living in my mind towards an ideal I hold, am I currently in that role? Am I in that persona? One thing I love saying is it's so ironic in a sense, is that the word person comes from the Latin word persona. And a persona is a little mask looking thing that the ancient Romans used to wear on stage. They would go on stage and they would do performances. And when they would be on stage, they didn't have electronics back in those days. So they put on a mask, and the mask had a kind of a megaphone on it. It would go out like this. So they put it on, and then when you speak through the mask, it amplifies your voice. And the mask is called the personas, meaning that which sound passes through, personas. And the person is the mask you put on. You know, you're Francisco. You know, you're playing the role of Francisco. Mm-hmm. Julian is playing the role of Julian. But these are just roles that we're playing. And if we like the roles, we feel good. If we don't, you know, we feel bummed out or down. And it's really interesting to think about it in that context, I find.
Yeah. That's interesting.
I'm always curious. I know you're talking about strategies and like, how can somebody develop a persona so they do well and they do well in an interview? How would you suggest, if I was like, Francisco, I'm just like, I'm not a super energetic person. I really just like to, you know, do my work, and I like the company stuff, but it's not my thing to be super energetic. What can I do? I think you touched on it a little bit more, but what can I do to develop a personality or persona where I can feel confident going in an interview, feel like I'm adding value, or feel like I'm explaining my experience in a way that I think the employer will not only like me, but understand the value I bring? How would you help someone, you know, develop a persona? What would you go to?
Okay. Talking about energy and this, like to show ourselves like energetic, maybe we can just understand it as to, I don't know, being really enthusiastic and speaking like loud and maybe we can understand this shining in other ways too. I mean, in an interview, if someone is has a lot of experiences, like projects, using different technologies, big challenges, and this person feels really proud of these accomplishments, and they can really know how to narrate them and to give the exact details to let the other person to imagine everything and understand everything in the enough amount of details. I mean,
The
it can
details,
be,
the
you can
details are
tell
important.
really good stories
Yeah.
to let the interviewer really know how you work, how you perform in different situations. So
Yeah.
I think that all candidates may have their own way to live something, like um, to let themselves know in the best way they can and they want, you know.
Yeah.
I think in the cases where there was not like a connection, or like something was maybe a little off, I feel that's maybe it comes from interviewer or from the candidate, but it's one of the parts is something is like off. It's not really there, connected, present. You know, that's really important to be present. That's something that it doesn't happen that much in our daily lives.
Yeah.
I mean, mindfulness is a good practice to be present. But the idea is to be present in everything, every activity. So that's the little things that you can feel, and that can make a decision to not moving forward with someone. So I maybe looking it in a different way, to be like energetic can be like being present, being there, like listening what the interviewer is really asking and saying, and what they really want to evaluate about the candidate.
Yeah.
It makes a big difference because the candidate can really think of a clear answer, and you need, it's important to have like the confidence, the security about their own story, because when they struggle to share their own story because they are ashamed or they feel they are not enough, or etc etc, that's what you're going to that's the sensation
Project.
you're going to
Yeah. That's definitely
communicate.
the energy. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. The mindfulness is a good practice, but staying present every day is probably the goal we should all shoot for. I know sometimes when I was first learning how to interview, it was the three breaths, right? Like take three breaths if you're feeling nervous, before you jump into an interview. It really kind of sets your just calms you down, and it kind of sets your focus. But also when you answer a question, taking a 2-second pause before answering. All these little tricks are so valuable to that idea of just staying present, staying in the question, not trying to rush through things. Oftentimes I feel like I'm rushing through things because I'm trying to get to the next task that much more quickly, or the next meeting, or what have you. But what are some other, do you have any other tricks or tips on how to stay present in the interview process? The preparation's done, but now I'm sitting in front of you. Oh gosh, what do I do? What kind of tricks do you have, or that you suggest to people in those moments when you're like, okay, if they ask you a question, you feel uncomfortable, or if you feel like you're not explaining yourself well, don't freak out. This is what you should do. What is that strategy that you recommend?
Okay. First of all, the preparation is key. It's really key. Because it's going to help compensate all the insecurities and all the stuff that maybe you need therapy to work on. But using some tips to be really prepared and to be ready for all the questions is going to help. So during the interview, I mean, it's okay to when you receive a quite tricky question, or maybe a question that you are not prepared for, maybe to just like ask for some seconds to think about the answer. Like, take your time. I mean, there's no problem about that, because it's like this rush to come up with an answer right away. And maybe the question needs some like thinking to put stuff together and choose a story and everything. So maybe you can take like 10, 15 seconds to think and then start and speak slowly so that maybe you can, I mean, you can catch up with your thoughts. Because if you're speaking too quickly, it's like you're rushing to like your thoughts too. So to take it slowly, to like own your own pace, and a pace that helps you. Because maybe the pace of the person is to go fast, and okay, great, but maybe the anxiety of the moment is making you like to speed it out.
Yeah.
And maybe that's not a clever thing. Maybe another thing is to listen, to really listen to the interviewer. And it seems like an obvious thing, but all my years interviewing people really troubles listening. Really listening, like understanding what I'm asking you.
I feel like a lot of times, along with the, just like asking for a second, people are uncomfortable to clarify questions. And I don't know if it's this like a feeling of awkwardness or insecurity that maybe I have to, hear everything that they say right away. But I think once you find the power of just like, I'm sorry, what did you say? Can you re-clarify, or can you ask the question one more time? Nobody ever has a problem with that. People are happy to clarify their questions, but that little hesitation, I think we're conditioned to think that we should answer right away and not take a second, and we have to know the answer. It's like trivia. It's like we're all playing Jeopardy, and we have to hit the buzzer and answer as fast as we can. But oftentimes we do need, like you said, 10 to 15 seconds to think through the question, or maybe even just vocalizing it. Can I have like 15 seconds to think about this? And oftentimes they'll give you that, and it gives you such more of a like efficient and streamlined conversation. It's interesting that little trick of asking for more time or re-clarifying. Man, we are so hesitant to ask that question, and it baffles me. I don't know if it's insecurity, if it's or if we're just learn to answer questions in a certain way.
There is a tricky. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go, please.
There is a tricky thing when we are doing in cases where we're doing the interview in like a second language, and it's that maybe asking this a second time to repeat the question expose the person that he has not that good listening comprehension. So maybe in that cases, what I suggest is to, if you're missing one word, let the interviewer know, like, okay, there was like the last word. I mean, I understood.
That's
this,
a great point.
And to repeat what you understood. Is it right? I'm missing something. This word was not clear. I think that's a little better because, well, the English is part of the evaluation too.
Right. That's a great point. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, good points, Julian and Francisco. I think repeating back what someone said, saying, okay, let's repeat back. If you're interviewing me and there's something I'm unclear about, right there, you said on line 25 that we should put a space between this and that, and you're asking me this. What did you mean by this? Kind of saying, okay, I was along for the ride up until this point. So you're affirming to the person that you're giving them your attention, but you're kind of underscoring where there's confusion. I think people are really receptive to that because you can flip it. You can say, okay, well, maybe as an interviewee, I'm scared to think that you don't believe that I'm a good listener and my comprehension is low. But if I reaffirm that by telling you what I just heard, then it makes you say, wow, I know for sure Mike is really good because he just repeated back to me everything I just told him. And the other thing I was thinking, Francisco, is I really appreciate your point about listening. I firmly can report on my own experience that for most of my life, I would be thinking in my head when I'd be looking at someone else who's talking. I would be thinking, okay, what's my response going to be to this? And I'm like, I'm looking at you and I can I catch the gist of what you're saying, and I get it. And I could probably repeat it back with some coherency, but ultimately, like, I'm processing in my mind, 80% of my CPU in my brain is going towards what's my response going to be to what you are saying at me. And you can see this all the time, right? People, they're not truly grasping, because what you get if you're fully attentive is you get the meaning behind the words. You don't just, your brain can process words and it can just store that, and you could still be doing other things. But I'm like, okay, what does Francisco mean here? Like, where is he coming at emotionally? Like, what's the whole picture to his message? And that just that gestalt, that total viewing of what you're saying is not, you can't get it if you're distracted. Like you even get this feeling, if you're distracted and you're listening to someone and you snap back to the present moment, you're like, oh shit, I missed something. Like it's like going to the bathroom during a movie. It's like, oh man, we're not where I was 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, that's awful when it happens.
Yeah. And the other thing, let me just add one more.
Yeah, totally. I agree.
Sorry, Francisco.
There's some connection issue.
How about now?
Here's okay. Okay, both of you, fine.
I'm losing the.
I think there might be a little delay.
It got quite a little frozen, and the audio too.
Yeah, we can hear you fine. While your connection is booting back up, I'll add one last point to that, which was I think what it boils down to is that we're scared that the good idea is not going to come to us. That we're thinking, okay, if I'm not thinking about this while the other person's talking, then it's not going to come to me, and it always does.
I'm sorry, Mike. I'm listening you quite with interference, like your voice cutting off all the time.
We can hear you fine.
Yeah.
And somebody mentioned.
Okay. Now I'm back. Now it's back.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Your listening is engaged.
Yeah.
I'll just repeat that last point, and we can flow on from there. So I think that ultimately a lot of the reason people are telling stories and talking to themselves in their head while they're looking at someone else in a conversation is that they're not confident that the ideas are going to come to them in the moment. And one piece of advice I heard at one time, actually was in an ayahuasca circle. It was really good. And somebody said, the organizer said, listen to everyone's stories as we go around the room with your 100% focus. And if you notice you're thinking, just let that go and pay attention again. And when it gets to you, just trust that you'll have words to say. You don't need to think about it ahead of time. The words will come. And I was like, oh, that just blew my mind. I'm going to do that for the rest of my life. That was just life-changing advice.
Yeah. I've heard it before. And yeah, of course, because we are all like nervous, like my time is coming up and I don't know what to say. So you end up listening to anyone. And it's a really useful advice. And well, it's the interviews are like practice. It's training too. I mean, if the first interviews in English, maybe you're quite rusty and you're really nervous. It's a big opportunity. A lot of expectations, and okay, maybe the first one is going to be a disaster, but the followings are going to be better. Just to try to take it easy and not maybe have a catastrophic thinking about the situation. And as you say, Mike, it's like, okay, trust in your work, trust in what you have to say. Because when this tension and anxiety goes off, we have more clarity to share our thoughts. So it's like a vicious circle.
I agree with the interview and practice. I think it's a huge point. There's a lot of people, individuals, candidates, they think that one interview means it all, and that's not the case. There's millions of companies out there. The skill set that a developer comes with is going to be wanted by a lot of companies. And if you do want to command, which company and what experience, you're best suited for, obviously you want to present yourself, prepare, and do well in the interview. But like you said, it's just practice, right? You're talking to people as a practice. At some point, you'll get so used to and comfortable. If you continue to, interview and maybe not accept offers and go through the process, you'll get better. And it's through the feedback, it's through the fear of like, all right, I'm not going to do perfect on this interview, but how can I do my best? And what can I learn from it? And if you approach it like that, it takes the weight off of the interview and you're just in a learning mode. And I think you're more naturally yourself rather than maybe presenting yourself as some way, but you're talking about your experience, you're being passionate about it, enthusiastic, but it's all practice. The real thing is when you get the job or when you go into a coding interview, that doesn't come until, a few other calls down the line, where you'll need a lot more of those skills. But I think a lot of people just, need to view it as a practice or a potential, learning experience rather than, if I don't get this job, I'm going to have no job, which I feel like a lot of people, think about when they approach it, which is not the case at all.
Yeah, and there is one word I want to put, to bring, and it's empowerment. There is a lot an additional thing here, and it's that this powerless feeling that the company has all the saying and all the power and the fate of your profession.
Yeah.
And this comes from how you say in English, like a shortage mentality, mentalidad de escasez.
Yeah.
Related to what we were saying, this is the opportunity. I won't have this same opportunity as this one, and that's like food for our fear.
Food
like
for fear.
Fuel for to freaking out. And I think that the employers really value a person who knows their own value and self-respect. I'm not going to sell my soul for a job, and I'm not going to accept every offer that I receive. In the case of IT, I think that given all the offers they have, maybe they get this a little better than other industries. They try to understand and this, and to know that they have a lot of options. But in the case of other industries, I mean, maybe there are not that much options, but that's not reason to look down or to maybe accept a job for a really miserable salary. And to this is something that we need to show part of our strategy, like a personal brand, to include this self-respect and to be interested and to evaluate the interviewers, the company, the culture, if my values are aligned with yours. And even though internally maybe I want the job and maybe I'm freaking out and whatever, it's good to show that, okay, I have control of the situation. I know what my value is, and we are going to make an agreement. That's powerful, and I think employers really respect that, and they want that kind of people in their companies.
I think I think you hit the nail on the head. Employers want to know what you bring to the table, both your strengths and your weaknesses. That's why they ask the question, not because they're going to judge your weaknesses, but they want to know, okay, is there somebody else on our team that has that strength to match with that individual? Because a lot of times what they're thinking, they're just strategizing. It's kind of if you play video games, right? What character attributes do you put on your team so that you have a well-rounded team? We can go through many examples. I won't bore anyone with game examples, but there's just so many different little things that make you unique, make you valuable, and others do complement you. And as soon as an organization can really pinpoint what that is, those are why you see really good teams, across different companies. But all in all, saying, your value, your strengths, your weaknesses are going to be measured against the team to see if you're a fit. And if you're not a fit, it could just be that they have somebody similar to your skill set, and that's it. And it's not so much an ego hit. It's mainly just like, okay, well, that's just not a good fit. My skills don't match there, and I'm going to go somewhere else, and just take that pressure off.
Yeah.
Can I add on?
Interesting.
One thing is something Julian said that kind of sparked an idea for me was, I think that it was really actually kind of a combination of something Francisco said too. But when you speak about your own experiences during an interview, really it could be during any form of interview, whether it's for a job or for a relationship as a friend or romantic relationship, you know almost infinitely more information about yourself than they know about you. And so whether we say it explicitly, there is an implicit understanding that I'm trying to read you. I'm trying to get to know you really quick. And so one of the ways that I'm going to do that is I'm going to sense whether you believe that you're confident enough to do what I'm asking you to do, which could be like date me or work at my company and do this job. And so if I look at you and you're kind of shy and sheepish and a little down, then I'm going to think, hey, you don't even think you can do this. You think I'm better than you. You think my company is too good for you. You think, if I'm a girl, I'm too good for you, or guys too good for you. This concept of prizing, like whenever we encounter another human being in any kind of transactional format, there's an element of prizing. Who is worth more? Am I worth more? Are you worth more? We're all trying to size each other up in a hierarchy. It's what like all life does. And I think that one of the ways that we do that is we look at how people are behaving. Are they sitting upright? Do they believe that they're higher up on this hierarchy or not? Do they kind of slouch it down? Where do they place themselves? And I think a lot of people that come out of weekend retreats or do coaching, they uplift themselves in their own hierarchy. So they peg themselves, instead of I'm just a minimum wage worker and I'm never going to make it. That's the story I'm telling about myself. I'm low, but if I can just shift my mindset and put me up higher, then immediately people respect my self placement higher in that hierarchy, and that gets reinforced. All of life reinforces that. So I think that is it's like, God, what do you call that? A trick? It's not a trick, it's just the truth. It's how things are.
It's perspective.
Maybe. Yeah.
Who knows? I like that point. It's one thing to take everything and be, I wouldn't say negative towards it, but just take the things that aren't as favorable to you. Maybe working in a position that you're not, or not earning the amount of money you are. There's a bunch of non or not statements. I'm not. When in reality, the shift is I will be, or I can be, or in the future I am, or in however long, as long as you present this idea of the individual you want to be and kind of constantly remind yourself of it. It doesn't matter where you start, you're going to get to it, because everything from that point, all your decisions are going to go to that goal subconsciously. And it's that perspective shift. I truly believe that. Otherwise, it's like the whole red light, green light, positive thinking. Yeah, exactly, Matthias. Just positive thinking. But if you always focus, I love this one, is if you always focus on red lights, then you're going to be the person that says, oh, I always get red lights. But if you focus on green lights, then you're just going to be the person who always drives through green lights when you're driving.
Totally. Yeah.
And that's
attraction.
Law of attraction. Yeah.
Yeah. I believe in that. And that's related to what we are talking about, this energy. I mean, it's very powerful. And I think I was thinking about this word you used, Julian, weaknesses. And I think that there is a tricky thing there, because when you ask for the candidate to talk about their weaknesses, that's not the way you're going to evaluate their weaknesses.
Sure, yeah.
You're going to ask the weaknesses to see what the candidate has prepared, and which capability they have to know themselves, to have like self-criticism, to be better, to learn, to grow.
Yeah.
So when the candidate is asking this, is answering this one, I mean, they have to be real. Like, I'm too perfectionist is like the lamest answer you can give.
I'll
Or
take that.
maybe
I'll take that one off
I
my
have
list.
this problem. I stay too late working, like stuff like that. And I believe that it's good to be like real. Maybe, I mean, you can choose the weaknesses. Maybe you don't have to choose the one that's going to uh, um, like make you have trouble to get that job. Maybe you
Yeah.
can choose other ones. I don't know. And but the thing I think is very important is to end the answer sharing what you're doing to make that weakness not an obstacle to perform well at your job.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
have you been doing to work on that, and
Yeah.
to clarify and to make sure that that weakness is there. I mean, it's something that is challenging for me, but doesn't mean it's an obstacle to
Right.
get things done.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Somebody told me great advice, gave me great advice once. Is whatever weakness you have, it's fine to be honest about it, and just add, what are you doing to acknowledge it, or maybe improve it over time. And personal example is I just get my attention span switches once I see something new to work on, and that's a weakness of mine. However, something I do is, I create a task list, an Airtable, and I check everything off so I don't forget anything. Everything gets completed. It's like you can talk about whatever you're maybe not so good at, but also add what you do to ail it. Because saying, yeah, really, I get distracted a lot, that gives your employer no confidence. But if you're like, I do get distracted between tasks, but I have a really good system where I notate everything, check it off,
yeah,
and go look at it at the end of the day. So they
yeah.
see, okay, well, he might get distracted, but I trust that things will get done.
That's real. That's to know someone is real. I mean,
It's real.
you cannot be perfect.
No.
And I want to clarify something about perfectionism. I know that it can be felt as a weakness. I myself, I feel perfectionism is at times a real obstacle in my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
But in the context of work, I mean, every employer likes to hear that you want to do things perfectly. So
Yeah.
it can get like a little bit like a cliche answer, like a
Yeah.
lot of people use it.
Mhm.
So just to clarify that, I respect that can be an answer,
Yeah.
but as a strategy, I advise not to choose that one. Maybe.
The perfectionist one,
Francisco,
yeah.
I will say we both Julie and I really appreciate all your efforts to help our organization at Otter Labs. I really look forward to our future collaboration. We've worked with over 1,000 developers now and dozens of different clients, and helping people get jobs is really a opportunity to connect with them. And
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
connection process is, hopefully, if we do this right, life-changing. And I really look forward to collaborating with you more so on how we tactically implement some of these, these pieces of advice, but really this methodology. So yeah, congrats again on all your progress, Francisco, and thank you for coming on today.
Yeah. Thank you, Francisco.
My pleasure. Thank you a lot for the space. I enjoyed it a lot. It was
Mm.
fun, and yeah, I hope we can still, start working together. That would be awesome.
Yeah, and we'll
Absolutely.
have to do this again sometime.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
All right, my friend.
All right.
Okay.